I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the new United States ambassador to Israel is sworn in. The Arab League summit in Jordan comes to a conclusion, and Israeli activists put together one incredible avian advocacy event. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. David Friedman has now made history by officially becoming the first foreign envoy appointed by U.S. President Donald Trump to take up his new post as ambassador to Israel. The oath of office was administered by U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, who stressed his boss's deep commitment to the Jewish state.
The President of the United States of America is a lifelong friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And under his leadership, if the world knows nothing else, the world will know this: America stands with Israel.
Pence also hailed Trump's decision to appoint his 57-year-old bankruptcy lawyer and longtime friend to the post despite his lack of diplomatic experience. Friedman has been very involved with Israel for many years.
He's been quick to rise to Israel's defense from those who would condemn her, because in your heart you know that those that hate Israel not for what she does wrong, but for what she does right. David, your record of compassion and care for Israel and her people is an inspiration to the President and an inspiration to us all.
Now, Friedman was only narrowly confirmed by a Senate vote of 52-46. That level of opposition is actually pretty unusual. Most nominees to become the face of the administration between the two close allies have traditionally been approved without objection. Friedman, however, was controversial due to his past investments in the settlement enterprise, as well as his alignment with the Israeli right. He also strongly favors moving America's embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is a sensitive position since it would imply recognition of Israeli sovereignty over the city, which is disputed by the Palestinians.
My thanks to President Trump for his courageous leadership, his friendship, and his guidance. I am humbled by the trust he has placed in me, and I will do everything that I can to justify his faith and confidence in my abilities. I'm very proud to say that my nomination represents the first time in American history that the U.S. ambassador to Israel was nominated by the President as early as the first day of his presidency. I was nominated on January 20th. On Inauguration Day. I'm equally proud to say that this is the first time in American history that the U.S. ambassador to Israel was the first ambassador approved by the Senate and given the oath of office. Those facts speak volumes about how highly the Trump-Pence administration prioritizes our unbreakable bond with the State of Israel.
Friedman took the oath as his wife Tammy, the couple's 5 children, and most of their grandchildren looked on. Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Ron Dermer, also attended the ceremony. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's very much looking forward to receiving the new U.S. ambassador in Jerusalem. Leaders at the 28th Arab League Summit are making headlines today. They're repeating their offer to get the Arab world to recognize a Jewish state if Israel fully withdraws from all land over the 1967 lines. Most of the Arab leaders are divided over a number of regional issues such as the Syrian civil war. But they've reached common ground on the creation of a Palestinian state based on the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative. And they're rejecting any changes to the proposal as called for by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Arab leaders also voiced sharp criticism of Israel's building of Jewish homes in the West Bank.
تستمر إسرائيل في توسيع الاستيطان وفي العمل على تقويض فرص تحقيق السلام. ولا سلام ولا استقرار في المنطقة دون حل عادل وشامل للقضية الفلسطينية. القضية المركزية في الشرق الأوسط من خلال حل الدولتين.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has declared the summit is a resounding success. He says the Arab leaders will convey their united stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict during upcoming meetings with U.S. President Donald Trump. The American leader surprised the Arab world on February 15th when he said that he doesn't necessarily support a two-state solution while standing alongside the Israeli premier. At the Arab summit, several European diplomats took the opportunity to reaffirm their own commitment to a Palestinian state.
A just and lasting peace between Israel and Palestine. This is and will continue to be a top priority for the European Union. A peaceful solution of this conflict, or even progress in that direction, could set a whole new paradigm for cooperation in the region, including on security. We firmly believe that the two-state solution remains the only realistic way to end the conflict and all claims. We would recognize changes to the 67 lines only when agreed by the parties, including with regard to Jerusalem.
Jordan is hosting the annual 22 Arab state gathering on its side of the Dead Sea, right across from Israel. It looks like the UN campaign against Israel isn't showing any signs of letting up whatsoever. Now, the same agency that was just forced to remove a negative report about the Jewish state is about to release yet another scathing indictment. The Times of Israel is reporting that the Lebanon-based Esqua group is about to publish a study comparing the plight of Palestinians to that of slaves in the historical American South. That same agency, whose full name is the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, represents 18 Arab states. Earlier this month, the group's director quit after the UN Secretary General demanded Esqua to remove a report from its website accusing Israel of running an apartheid regime. That's the first time any world body ever used that term. Now, the timing of the next outrageous claim is believed to coincide with the 50-year anniversary of the 1967 Six-Day War, which is in June. Esqua is said to be working on this latest study with UNCTAD, which is the UN's Conference on Trade and Development. The two agencies are apparently trying to come up with an actual financial sum Israel should pay the Palestinians based on previous plans to compensate victims of slavery and the South African apartheid era. Jerusalem's foreign ministry is responding by saying that these latest efforts to delegitimize Israel will be rejected, just as Esqua's previous attempts were. And not only by the Jewish state, but by other countries, as well as the UN's own secretariat. Israel has announced that it will cut its required payment to the United Nations by $2 million, and it's all because of a spat of recent anti-Israel votes. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story. Aaron, what is the Israeli government thinking? Tell us about this.
Essentially, the Israeli government is thinking the same thing it was thinking when it passed legislation banning BDS activists from entering the country. The ideology is, I'm not going to fund something that is actively attacking me. Why pay for my own destruction, you know? And the UN is a perfect example of that. The UN Human Rights Council, for example, has passed over 60 resolutions since its founding in 2006 just against Israel, which is more than any other country combined.
Well, let's check out your report.
The General Assembly requires that all 193 member states pay a percentage of the United Nations budget based on their GDP. Failure to do so would cause a member state to lose its vote in the General Assembly. Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nachshon has said that the $2 million will instead be used for developmental projects in countries that support Israel in the international arena. Israel has already cut close to $6 million from its contribution of $11.7 million following a UN resolution passed in December condemning Israel's settlement building in the occupied territories. Last week, United Nations Special Rapporteur to the Palestinian Territories Michael Lynk charged Israel with the subjugation of Palestinians' humanity and claimed that Israel had been cracking down on human rights campaigners. The claims were presented in a report given to the UN Human Rights Council during the Geneva-based organization's mandated session on Israel, otherwise known as Agenda Item 7. Israel is the only country targeted with a dedicated UNHRC agenda item. United States Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has publicly threatened to withdraw from the Council over its biased agenda item against Israel.
The assassination of a top Hamas leader in the Gaza Strip last week has raised tensions between Israel and Hamas. Mazen Fakawa was a convicted terrorist released by Israel in the Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange and was then exiled to Gaza. Yet from the coastal enclave, he continued to plan terror attacks in the West Bank. While Hamas is quick to blame Israel for the killing, Times of Israel Palestinian Affairs reporter Dov Lieber told ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that the total silence from the Palestinian Authority could point in another direction.
Well, what's interesting is that the Palestinian Authority has said nothing on the matter. Zero. Total silence from their side. A Hamas leader is killed, not a word.
Not condemning it.
Not condemning, nothing. No words.
This Fakha was a security prisoner in Israel. He was released as part of the Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange deal. How did he wind up in Gaza?
Israel put him there.
So we did not let him go back to his home in the West
Exactly.
Bank. We sent him back to Gaza. And there is no doubt that he has been involved, has returned to the ways of terrorism.
Look, I haven't seen any proof of that, or...
Nobody's denying it.
I've just seen reports that say he was supposedly a part of this, a leader of a cell that plans attacks in the West Bank. But no, Israel obviously isn't going to put out any evidence of that. Because why would they put out evidence to say, oh, we killed this guy and here's the evidence? No. So currently we're just working off what we knew before. But Hamas hasn't had many successful attacks in the West Bank previous. Like you could put them on one hand. So for me, it's difficult to understand what exactly they're blaming him for. Now, it was last week the head of the Shin Bet, Israel's internal security agency, that said that Israel has stopped numerous attacks in the West Bank. It's highly possible that this guy was responsible for planning attacks.
Hamas leadership traditionally has feared. If they fear anything, they fear liquidation of their leaders, targeted assassinations of their leaders. It's something that at all costs they try to prevent, not by being able to physically prevent them, but by arranging some kind of an understanding with Israel that you don't cross that line. Would they be going into hiding at this point?
Well, their two main leaders, Ismail Hani and Yahya Sinwar, were at a funeral publicly in Gaza yesterday. But I'm sure there's probably some fear because they really do think it's Israel, I think. And if so, they maybe, the game is on. Israel is not afraid to assassinate their leaders in the Strip, so they'll probably have to take precaution to avoid
Sinwar, he's new as the leader of Hamas in Gaza. He's known as very much of a hardliner. He's going to have to respond, won't he?
Right, this is really a big test for Yahya Sinwar, who's known as a hardline militant. He's known as extremely militant already within a terrorist group. So, and he's not somebody who would
look the other way.
Look the other way, exactly. So this is a real test for him as a leader. I'm sure the Israeli security agencies are watching very closely what he says, how he responds. So far, he hasn't said anything. He's let his deputy speak for him, which is very interesting.
The Gaza-based terror group Hamas is believed to have just released a new video threatening to kill several high-level Israeli officials. ILTV's Aaron Porras returns with more now. Aaron, what's the deal with this threat specifically?
So the threat is believed to be in response to a recent assassination of a top Hamas member. Israel has not responded to any allegations that it was them, but of course we know now that Hamas is blaming Israel for the assassination. So in the video you can see various Israeli leaders caught within the crosshairs of a sniper rifle scope. And in a short message posted both in Hebrew and in Arabic, it says, "We will act in kind." So
let's check out your report.
Those threatened in the short clip include Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, Shin Bet Chief Nadav Argaman, Mossad Chief Yossi Cohen, IDF Deputy Chief of Staff Aviv Kochavi, Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan, and the commander of the new Oz Commando Brigade, Colonel David Zini. The video has been publicized by the Gaza-based Shahab news agency and is believed to be in response to the assassination of senior Hamas terrorist Mazen Foukaha last week. Foukaha was sentenced by Israel to life in prison for helping to orchestrate suicide bombings during the Second Intifada that killed 9 Israelis. He was later released and exiled to Gaza as part of the Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange deal in 2011. Hamas blames Israel for Fuqaha's assassination, however. The Jewish state denies culpability.
The Israeli Prime Minister is reportedly about to do his best to convince the cabinet to support the building of the first entirely new settlement in 25 years. If he succeeds, the move may create waves with the White House. Local media is reporting that the premier is undertaking the risky mission so the government can make good on its promise to former residents of Amona. When the legal West Bank outpost was dismantled last month, the residents were told a new settlement could be created if they left peacefully. But right after that, U.S. President Donald Trump called on Netanyahu to hold back on all construction during their joint press conference in Washington. There have been massive ongoing talks since that time to reach a consensus on the matter. The Israeli leader is believed to have called the meeting of his security cabinet for later this evening because of increasing pressure from the evacuees to honor his obligation. Work on that new settlement, by the way, was supposed to have begun by the end of this month. And during tonight's talks, the premier is also expected to update his ministers about new efforts to revive peace talks with the Palestinians. In 2002, Israeli reservists were lynched in the West Bank after they inadvertently entered the Palestinian city of Ramallah. And now most of the public is shocked by the news that one of the Palestinians imprisoned for his role in the crime has been set free. An Israeli military court revisited the murder conviction of a former Palestinian police officer and let him go for time served. Khatam Faiz Khalil Magari had been sentenced to a life term for his involvement in the lynching. Israeli reservists Vadim Nurchitz and Yossi Avrahami were brutally killed and mutilated by a Palestinian mob after they'd been taken into custody at a police station in Ramallah. During a retrial, the officer agreed to plead guilty for having failed to prevent the murders. That meant a reduction in his term to just 11 years behind bars. Since he's already been in jail for 16, the ruling necessitated his release. The three-judge panel acknowledged that Magari's involvement in the crime was burned into the consciousness of Israelis more than almost any other. He not only was among the officers who took the two Israelis into custody, but he also beat them on the way to the station. The court nevertheless ruled that he wasn't among the Palestinians who viciously beat the men to death once they were taken captive. It looks like Israel is going to have a new top model to look forward to because Israeli supermodel Bar Rafaeli is pregnant again. The 31-year-old celebrity has posted a photo of her emerging baby bump on social media. This will be the second child for Rafaeli and her businessman husband Adi Ezra, who got married in September of 2015. There's no doubt that Rafaeli is the best-known Israeli to take to the international catwalk. She's graced the covers of scores of magazines, including the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue in 2009, which is basically the fashion world's holy grail. In 2012, she was even voted first place on Maxim magazine's Hot 100 list. Rafaeli gave birth to her firstborn child, baby girl Liv, just last August, so I guess she's now not only a superstar, but also a model mom. Well, it's already that time of year again. Thousands of notes are set to be collected at the Western Wall in Jerusalem to be delivered to God. The meticulous process happens twice a year ahead of major Jewish holidays. Thousands of written prayers are carefully collected from where they were tucked in between the ancient stones. The notes are removed gently so no harm is caused to the treasured perimeter wall of the site where both biblical temples once stood.
המקום הזה הוא מקום מסוגל לתפילה, מקום שבו הקדוש ברוך הוא אומר לשלמה, והיו עיניי וליבי שם כל הימים, ממנו לא זזה שכינה מעולם. נקרא בפי עם ישראל כותל של דמעות, מלא דמעות של יהודים, מלא דמעות, מלא בקשות, ואנחנו מתפללים כאן שהקדוש ברוך הוא ישמע את תפילות היהודים והאינם יהודים שבאו לכאן וביקשו וייתן להם את מבוקשם.
The Jewish tradition of leaving written prayers has been adopted by members of many faiths, and it's become common to see Christian pilgrims leave their own notes. Nowadays, some are even sent through fax, email, or online to the Western Wall Heritage Foundation, which prints them out for a placement on the Temple Mount. They're gathered twice a year before the Jewish New Year in autumn and Passover celebration of freedom in the spring. The prayers are then buried for all eternity on holy ground at the Mount of Olives. After all, here in Israel, the delivery of God's mail is to a local address that hasn't changed for thousands of years. After all the recently made medical innovations, people are living longer and healthier than ever. But there's always room for improvement, which brings me to today's guest, Noam Hasidov, the founder and CEO of Tandem Technologies. Tandem Technologies is an incubator company within the Trendline Group, and he's here to tell us more about what his company is doing to help our medical professionals in the field. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, so now I understand your company has been working on something called the Tandem Snare. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So today, physicians remove polyps from the human colon during colonoscopy. Colonoscopy is a screening procedure that looks for cancer in the colon, as you can see here.
Exactly.
And what happens is that once the physician finds a polyp, he removes it before it becomes cancer. Now he's working only with one tool. So figure how it's hard to cut a tomato with one hand. It goes all the way.
Absolutely.
But once you add a second hand, one holding it, a second cutting, it's easier. At Tandem Technologies, we do the same. We add a second hand to the physician so he can hold it with a tiny grasper and cut it with the loop outside. So we get perfection cut each time.
All right, so what inspired you to focus on this issue? What was the thought process behind what you created?
So I'm looking at physicians for more than 10 years, how they work and what is the things that is hard for them and easy for them. And I saw that both young and old physicians have the same problem of grasping the polyp. They just try and try and try, and it runs away. It's like trying to grasp something which is a small bump. You just try to grab it and it runs away. So this eventually made me to the understanding and that you need a second hand to hold
Now,
it.
explain, what is the real problem with losing a polyp here and there? Because, I don't know much about this issue specifically.
So what happens when you find a polyp, you want to take it to pathology lab to know what the patient have. Does he have normal tissue? Is it cancerous? Should we send him to surgery? Or should we send him home for 10 years until his second screening? So if you don't have pathology, you don't know the result. Then we don't know what to do with the patient. So it's critical to know what was removed, because if not, we cannot give the patient the right treatment.
Now, is this product already available for use?
No, it's under development now and not available for use.
And when is the time frame? When can we expect to see physicians using it?
Probably early next year.
Amazing, amazing. So what is next for Tandem Technologies? Do you have any message that you guys want to send to the people that are listening today?
Actually, yes. Like 5% of people will suffer from colon cancer in their lifetime, which is a huge number. And if you're above 50, go to your physician, tell him that you want to get screened and have your colonoscopy. It will keep you alive for long years.
And hopefully this product will be out there and ready so that your physician can do a better test on you.
Okay.
Do you guys have any technologies down the line that are going to be coming out that are related to other diseases?
Not at this time.
All right, well, we're going to have to look forward to what you guys come up with.
Thank
you so much for coming in.
Welcome.
The International Champions of the Flyway event was just held in southern Israel, and the charitable competition is all in good fun, but it's held on behalf of a very serious cause. And that's to save the black storks from extinction and combat the illegal hunting of other birds in neighboring Turkey. About 200 ornithology activists gathered in Israel's Arava desert for a 24-hour stretch. The challenge was to see which of the 30 local and 16 foreign teams could identify the most bird species. And you'll never believe how many they found. Coming in first was a Finnish group that counted 181 different types, and the runner-up was an Israeli-Palestinian team that spotted 171. One very dedicated green team came all the way down to the Israeli desert on foot or by bicycle. The annual charitable competition is sponsored by the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. Its main goal is to heighten awareness about poaching while garnering donations for the protection of birds worldwide. This is the fourth contest in Israel, and the participants succeeded in raising the stunning amount of nearly $68,000.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by the University of Haifa, Hebrew Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. If you've ever played baseball or basketball, you've probably had to learn how to catch. So today's word is litfos, meaning to catch. Over here in the Jewish state, Israelis tofsim or catch things all the time, from sports balls to frisbees on the beach or in the park. And if you spend enough time on the beach, you can even see plenty of surfers tofsim the perfect wave. Sometimes you can see people running down the street to litfos or to catch the bus. And if you're you're really unlucky, you might even litfos a cold. Whatever you decide to catch, just don't tfos or catch me in the mornings without coffee. Or you can tfos me outside. How about that? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight is expected to be partly cloudy with a chance of light rain and a low of 57 or 14 degrees Celsius. The weekend should be cloudy with scattered showers and a chance of thunderstorms with a high of 73 or 23 degrees Celsius. That's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.62 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching and see you next time.